to America Reads Fun Learning Activities. My name is Cam, and I'm a college student who absolutely loves learning. I create activities for kids like you, who like to build up their brain power while having fun. Here at America Reads, we create all sorts of activities related to reading, writing, and math. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff. We're specifically going to be looking at shapes, recognizing and drawing them. But not just any shapes, shapes with specific attributes. We'll be looking at things like angles, faces, and vertices. Remember that there is an activity sheet that goes along with this video. You can find that on the America Reads resource page. Do you think you're ready for our adventure? Awesome, let's go!
Today, we are going to be taking a look at a number of different shapes. Shapes can be compared on the basis of their characteristics, the traits that set them apart from other shapes. The three main characteristics we will be taking a look at today are angles, faces, and vertices. To start off, do you know what an angle is? For those of you who haven't learned about angles yet, an angle is a figure created when two lines meet at a specific point. Angles are measured in degrees. Here are a couple examples of angles. The three angles we are going to briefly be introduced to are right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles. A right angle is now being shown on the screen. A right angle is an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. It is formed when a perfectly vertical line shares an endpoint, or a point of intersection, with a perfectly horizontal line. Remember, vertical means up and down, horizontal means side to side. An acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. Here is an example of an acute angle. Remember, an acute angle cannot be equal to or greater than 90 degrees. The angle on the board is an acute angle because it is 60 degrees, which is 30 degrees less than 90 degrees. Finally, an obtuse angle is an angle that is more than 90 degrees. In other words, an obtuse angle cannot be equal to or less than 90 degrees. The angle on the screen is 130 degrees, which makes it an obtuse angle. Now that we have a basic understanding of what an angle is, let's try to think about angles that appear in everyday life. Believe it or not, we are both surrounded by angles right now. Take the chair I'm sitting in, for example. Do you see the angle it's forming? What kind of angle is this? It's a right angle. It is 90 degrees, as indicated by the little red square. Another example we can take a look at is a house. Do you see the house on the screen? Take a minute to see if you can identify any areas that are considered angles. Remember, an angle is formed in the space between two lines sharing an endpoint or a point of intersection. Now we have the angles highlighted. Do you see them? Were you able to identify any angles on your own? If so, great job! Now that we know more about angles, let's go ahead and talk about faces. In geometry, a face is essentially a flat surface. In other words, any flat side of a shape is considered a face. Faces are more commonly considered when discussing three-dimensional objects. To show you what I mean, let's take a look at these dice. How many flat sides do you see? The number of flat sides is the number of faces. Take a moment to count them. This cube has 6 faces. When counting, we have to remember to count the bottom and top of the object. If you have a hard time seeing that with the dice, take a look at the cube over on the left. Finally, we are going to talk about vertices. While the name might sound a bit confusing, vertices are not all that complicated. Vertices are basically endpoints, corners. We have highlighted the vertices of the rectangle on the screen. How many do you see? Great job! This rectangle has 4 vertices. One thing to remember is that not every shape will have vertices. To show you what I mean, let's do a quick comparison. Right now, there's a delicious chocolate chip cookie and a series of chips on the screen. The cookie, which is circular, does not have any vertices because it does not have any corners or endpoints. On the other hand, the chip, an individual chip in the pile, has 3 vertices or 3 corners. It is triangular. Speaking of triangular, let's move on to talking about triangles. Try to recount what you already know about triangles as a starting point. Put simply, a triangle is a closed shape with 3 faces, 3 vertices, and 3 internal angles. For reference, an internal angle is an angle inside a shape, while an external angle is an angle that is not contained inside a shape. The angles you see on the screen are internal angles because they are inside the triangle. There are different types of triangles to know about, but before we discuss different triangles, let's have a little fun. I'm going to challenge you to a drawing contest. Here are the rules. You can draw whatever you want to, but you have to start your drawing with a triangle. In other words, you need to draw a triangle and then build a picture off of that triangle. Take a minute to pause the video and draw. I'm excited to see your creation. Welcome back. How'd it go? Let's see your drawing. That looks amazing! Do you want to see my drawing? I actually ended up drawing my picture inside of the triangle. I made a yummy piece of pizza. That said, I'm pretty sure you won with your amazing drawing. As I promised, we are going to take a look at a few different types of triangles now. The first triangle is an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle is a triangle that has 3 sides that are the same length. The little dash you see is used to indicate the 2 or more sides that are equal. In this case, the 3 dashes confirm that the 3 sides of this triangle are the same. The second type of triangle we will discuss is the isosceles triangle. Unlike an equilateral triangle, an isosceles triangle only has 2 sides that are the same length. That means one side of the triangle is a different length than the other 2 sides. The third side can be longer or shorter than the other 2 sides. The final triangle I'm going to introduce you to is a right triangle. This one looks a little different than the other 2 we just discussed. A right triangle is a triangle that has one angle equal to 90 degrees. Can you guess which angle that is? I'll give you a hint. There's a symbol inside the triangle pointing it out. Awesome job! The 90-degree angle is the one labeled by the little box. Across the board, that square symbol is used to indicate right angles, angles that are precisely 90 degrees. That means if you ever see a triangle marked by that symbol, you know it has an angle that is 90 degrees. Using a straight edge and pencil, why don't you go ahead and try to draw a right triangle yourself, like the one on the screen? Go ahead and pause the video to do so. Awesome! You are such a great student. I love your participation. Now that we've spent some time learning about triangles, let's get introduced to a new shape. Today, we're going to take a look at a kite. A kite is a flat shape with straight sides. It has two pairs of equal length sides that are next to or adjacent to each other. The top two sides of the kite, which are being pointed to by arrows, are the same length. Likewise, the other two sides, the two sides that are not being pointed at, are the same length. Tell me, how many vertices does this kite have? Great! A kite has 4 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoa! It looks like 2 familiar shapes just popped up on the screen. Do you recognize these fellas? That's right, we are taking a look at a rectangle and a square. Can you do me a favor? Go ahead and tell me how many vertices each of these shapes have. 4. Each of these shapes have the same number of vertices. So what is it that sets them apart? They don't look the same, do they? No, they don't. That's because these shapes are a bit different even though they have lots in common. Both of these shapes have 4 sides and 4 right angle corners. The difference is, a rectangle has a pair of sides that is longer than its other pair of sides. Not all of the sides of a rectangle are the same length. On the other hand, all of a square's sides are the same length. Let's take a look at a 3-dimensional rectangle we see in everyday life. A shoebox! How many faces, or flat sides, do you think the shoebox has? Take a moment to identify all of the faces. This shoebox has 6 faces. Do you see them all? Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great job! Remember, when you're counting faces, especially the faces of a 3-dimensional object, you need to remember to count the top and bottom of the object. That is included in your count of the faces. So we're nearing the end of our lesson, but before we do, I want to introduce you to 2 more shapes. The first shape I want you to meet is the pentagon. A pentagon is a shape that has 5 sides and 5 angles. An example of something in real life shaped like a pentagon is a baseball plate. Let's try to draw a pentagon together. Remember, it has 5 sides. Not only does it have 5 sides, it also has 5 vertices and 5 angles. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sides. Now the vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Awesome job, we did it! Okay, the last shape I want to introduce you to is a hexagon. A hexagon is a shape with 6 sides, 6 vertices, and 6 angles. It looks like this. A real-life example of a hexagon is the end of a colored pencil. Isn't that cool? Before we move to our review and finish up, can you tell me 2 differences between a pentagon and a hexagon? Pause the video if you need a minute to think about it. Awesome job for answering that question. I was thinking about the fact that pentagons have 5 sides and 5 vertices, while a hexagon has 6 sides and 6 vertices. Guess what? Now it's review time! Why don't we start with what we covered at the beginning of the video? The 3 important vocabulary terms I want you to remember are angles, faces, and vertices. Do you remember what these terms mean? An angle refers to the space measured in degrees between 2 lines that share an endpoint or a point of intersection. 3 types of angles are right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles. Remember, a right angle is an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. A vertice is an endpoint or a corner. Vertices are endpoints or corners of a shape. A face is a flat side of a geometric figure. After discussing these terms, we spent some time talking about triangles, which are shapes with 3 sides and 3 vertices. The 3 types of triangles I want you to keep in mind are equilateral triangles, isosceles triangles, and right triangles. If you don't remember what makes these triangles different from one another, I would recommend you go back and re-watch the triangle section of the video. Briefly though, I'll remind you that an equilateral triangle is a triangle that has 3 sides of equal length. An isosceles triangle only has 2 sides of equal length, and a right triangle is a triangle with 1 right angle. The other shapes that we looked at are kites, squares, rectangles, pentagons, and hexagons. Thank you for joining me today.
While I wish I could keep learning with you all day, it's time to say see you later. Thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know about you, but I sure had a lot of fun. If you haven't already, please feel free to like or subscribe. You're also welcome to ask any questions that you have in the comment section below. Know that we will be back with new and exciting videos very shortly. In the meantime, stay safe and keep on learning.